Have you ever noticed how life seems to move in circles, until one day, without warning, everything suddenly clicks into place? You've been praying for change, working towards something better, yet nothing shifts. Then, in a single moment, doors you never even knocked on begin to open. Carl Jung understood this phenomenon deeply. He said, "When an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate. The universe doesn't withhold blessings randomly. It waits, it watches, and only when your soul reaches a specific frequency of readiness does it begin revealing what has been waiting for you all along." The strangest part? Most people miss these signals entirely because readiness doesn't look like excitement or confidence. It looks like surrender, like exhaustion, like a quiet knowing you cannot explain. If you're watching this video, it may not be a coincidence. Something inside you is shifting, and the universe is preparing to show you what only appears when you're finally ready. Stay until the end, because what you're about to discover might be the very thing your soul has been searching for, without knowing how to name it. There is a truth most people don't want to face. Wanting something and being ready for it are two entirely different states of consciousness. This distinction sounds simple, even obvious, yet it determines whether you remain locked in old patterns or step through the threshold into genuine transformation. Jung observed that most of what we call willpower is merely the voice of the ego, a psychological layer that craves comfort, fears loss of control, and secretly hopes change will happen without any real cost. Think back to a time when you said, "I want a better life. I want to leave this situation. I want to love differently." These desires are sincere. They're real, but they exist within your comfort zone. Wanting doesn't require you to confront anything uncomfortable. It lets you dream about a future version of yourself without touching the unconscious patterns that keep you exactly where you are. The ego can want transformation while simultaneously sabotaging every opportunity for it, and you won't even notice the contradiction. Readiness is different. Readiness doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment. Jung called this the awakening of the self, the deepest, truest part of you that exists beyond fear and social conditioning. When the self begins to stir, you feel it as an undeniable pull, a restlessness that cannot be soothed by distraction. The unconscious is steering your life, Jung warned, and you will call it fate. But when readiness arrives, you finally recognize the steering wheel has been in someone else's hands, and you reach for it. Consider someone who says they want healthy love. They read books about relationships, attend therapy, understand their patterns intellectually, yet they keep returning to people who hurt them. This is wanting without readiness. The unconscious is still running old programs, fear of abandonment, hunger for validation, patterns learned in childhood. Wanting change means recognizing the problem. Being ready means standing in front of the mirror and asking the question that terrifies you most. Why do I keep choosing this? What am I seeking from this pain? What part of my past am I trying to heal through repetition? Imagine standing at the edge of an ocean, saying you want to learn to swim. You can study swimming techniques, watch others glide through the water, picture yourself moving with grace, but you remain dry, safe, standing on sand. Being ready is the moment you step into the water and let it touch your skin. You feel the cold shock, the disorientation, the loss of solid ground beneath your feet. Readiness is allowing yourself to be challenged, to lose balance, to not know what comes next. Jung understood that real transformation begins only when the cost of staying becomes greater than the cost of leaving. This is the threshold moment, the place where desire becomes readiness. You no longer ask, when will things change? You ask, how do I change? And that question opens a door the universe has been waiting for you to notice. This is exactly what's happening in your life right now, whether you realize it or not. The exhaustion you feel, the restlessness, the sense that something must give, these are not signs of weakness. They are signs that readiness is arriving and the universe is preparing to respond. What happens when that readiness crystallizes into something undeniable? And from that threshold between wanting and being ready, something unexpected emerges. The moment you are truly ready doesn't arrive as a burst of inspiration or sudden clarity. It arrives as exhaustion, a tiredness so deep that you can no longer maintain the performance. Jung called this the rebellion of the soul, the moment when your true nature refuses to be suppressed any longer. This exhaustion is not ordinary fatigue. It's not the tiredness after a long day or a difficult week. It's the feeling when you look around your life and everything appears fine on the surface. Stable job, decent relationships, no obvious crisis. Yet inside, a hollow space expands, like a drop of water falling on the same spot again and again. Eventually, the surface begins to crack. Your soul withdraws energy from what no longer serves you, and when the soul withdraws, exhaustion appears in its purest form. Picture someone who has worked at the same company for years. The salary is adequate. Colleagues are pleasant. There's nothing objectively wrong. Yet every morning they wake with an invisible weight pressing on their chest. They don't hate the job. They've simply outgrown it. Their body refuses to repeat yesterday. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of the psyche's compensatory nature. When you drift too far from your authentic path, the unconscious creates discomfort to pull you back into alignment. The exhaustion is not punishment. It is navigation. Or imagine someone in a relationship they keep trying to save. They tell themselves it's salvageable, that it's not that bad, that they just need to try harder. But with each attempt, they feel smaller. Then one day, the other person says something completely ordinary. A simple sentence, nothing particularly cruel, and something inside collapses, not dramatically, quietly, like a thread finally breaking after years of tension. They realize they're exhausted from holding on, from contorting themselves into shapes that no longer fit, from living in service to someone else's comfort at the expense of their own soul. Jung noted that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. As long as you have energy to deceive yourself, you will. As long as you have strength to justify, you will justify. But when exhaustion arrives, all defense mechanisms crumble. The ego's elaborate stories stop working. You see your life clearly, perhaps for the first time, and the truth becomes undeniable. You need change, and you know it. This exhaustion doesn't destroy you. It frees you. It's like the darkness before dawn, the deepest silence before light breaks through. Imagine wearing a shirt that has been too tight for years. You kept squeezing into it because you feared others wouldn't recognize the new you. You feared they'd say you've changed too fast, that you're leaving familiar circles behind. But one day, the discomfort becomes unbearable. Your body speaks louder than your fear. No one needs to tell you to change the shirt. The knowing is cellular. If there has ever been such a moment in your life, feel free to leave a whisper below. Sometimes a single sentence is enough to illuminate an entire journey someone else has been trying to walk through. This exhaustion is the doorway to inner honesty, and that honesty becomes the foundation for every transformation that follows. You've outgrown your old version, and the universe is watching to see if you'll honor that truth. This exhaustion doesn't destroy you, it frees you. And once you accept this freedom, you begin seeing your entire past through different eyes. You step into a new layer of understanding. Every moment of suffering you've endured was not random cruelty or cosmic punishment. It was preparation. Jung called this the soul's arrangement, the way life orchestrates experiences not to break you, but to forge you into someone capable of holding what comes next. He said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. The path to awakening is paved with difficulty, because difficulty is what expands your capacity." Think of someone who loved the wrong person, not just heartbreak, an injury so deep it forced them to question everything they believed about their own worth. In that moment, nothing made sense. Days blurred into weeks of confusion and grief. But years later, after some healing had taken place, they looked back and understood. Without that relationship, they would never have learned where their boundaries were. They would never have seen the patterns they were repeating from childhood, the unconscious ways they sought validation through abandoning themselves. That pain pushed them inward on a journey they never would have taken if everything had remained comfortable. Or consider someone who failed spectacularly in their career at the exact moment they felt most prepared. They had worked for years toward a specific goal, and when the opportunity finally came, they stumbled. The shame was crushing. They felt like an imposter, convinced they had wasted their only chance. But years later, they found themselves in a new role, one more aligned with their actual gifts, more authentic to who they really were. Only then did they realize the earlier failure didn't destroy them. It removed them from a path that was never truly theirs. What felt like an ending was actually a redirection. Jung explained this through the compensatory nature of the unconscious. When you drift away from the path your true self is meant to walk, the unconscious creates events, sometimes painful ones, to pull you back into balance. Because we often ignore subtle signals, the unconscious intensifies them. Small discomforts become major losses, not to break you, but to wake you up. Pain, in Jungian psychology, is like the body's fever when fighting infection. It signals that healing has begun, not that you're at your end. Imagine you are a tree. Strong winds don't come to snap you in half. They come to drive your roots deeper into the earth. Storms don't arrive to frighten you. They arrive to teach you how to stand when everything around you is chaos. Every moment you thought you were about to shatter, you are actually growing larger, deeper, more real. Pressure creates capacity. What once broke you has become the language your soul understands best. People who have walked through profound pain often emerge more grounded, more compassionate, more capable of holding complexity. This isn't because they're somehow better than others. It's because pain did its work. Pain stripped away what was false and revealed what was true. The paths that felt like cruel detours led you exactly where you needed to be. What has everything you've lived through been preparing you for? That question leads you into the next stage of the journey, where the universe begins testing whether you've learned what the pain was teaching. And once you see your past pain as preparation, you face another truth, colder, sharper, more uncomfortable than anything that came before. The universe does not hand you what you ask for simply because you've suffered enough or waited long enough. It tests you first. Jung understood that every expansion of consciousness comes paired with a counterforce, as if life holds up a mirror and asks, have you truly grown, or are you only saying so? You say you want peace. Life sends you the person who knows exactly which buttons to trigger your old reactions. Not to torment you, but to reveal whether you've actually integrated the lessons you claim to have learned. Will you fall back into defensiveness, or will you respond from a place of genuine calm? This isn't mockery, it's verification. The universe is measuring whether your inner structure can support what you're asking to receive. Imagine someone who says they want authentic love. Then a relationship appears, someone kind, available, emotionally healthy. But instead of embracing it, they create distance. They test this person's commitment with manufactured drama. They sabotage intimacy because healthy love feels unfamiliar, even threatening. Their unconscious only knows chaos. Kindness doesn't match the pattern, so the pattern fights back. The universe isn't denying them love. It's showing them where their capacity still needs to grow. Or think of someone who wants a new beginning, a fresh chapter, freedom from old constraints. They make declarations, set intentions, visualize the future they desire. Then small risks begin presenting themselves. Opportunities to speak their truth, to set boundaries, to make uncomfortable choices that align with their stated values. And they freeze. They justify staying in the familiar. They choose comfort over growth. The universe doesn't force transformation. It offers tests to see if you're serious about what you claim to want. Jung spoke of the shadow confrontation, the stage where everything you have avoided, every fear you've tried to bypass, rises to the surface. This happens not randomly, but precisely when you're on the edge of breakthrough. Consciousness expands not through reward, but through opposition. You learn calm not on peaceful days, but when chaos surrounds you and you choose stillness anyway. You discover your worth not when someone validates you, but when someone tries to diminish you and you refuse to accept their projection. Notice how, when you commit to real change, life often becomes harder before it becomes easier. Like swimming out of shallow water, the first waves hit hardest. They test whether you truly want to go forward or whether you are only chasing temporary inspiration. Many people interpret this resistance as a sign they're on the wrong path, but Jung would say it's proof you're on the right one. The enemy only attacks what has value. Darkness only fights against what has the potential to create light. Before every genuine shift, there's usually a situation that forces you to choose between your old self and the version of you that's trying to emerge. These are the exams. Without tests, there's no transformation. Without hard choices, there's no expansion of consciousness. Rewards arrive only after your actions demonstrate that you've broken free from old patterns. If there was ever a moment when you felt the universe was quietly testing you, write it below. Sometimes naming these moments helps you see the pattern more clearly. And this is where the story shifts. Life isn't only testing you to prove your readiness. It's measuring what you can carry into the next chapter. Because self-worth, Jung understood, is not about deserving. It's about capacity. This is one of Jung's most powerful perspectives because it completely dismantles how most people think about worthiness. In depth psychology, self-worth does not come from being praised, validated, or chosen by others. It comes from inner structure, the steadiness, maturity, and integration of your psyche. Jung called this the capacity to contain. When this structure is weak, every good thing that enters becomes overwhelming. When this structure is strong, even challenges become resources you can transform. Consider someone who says, "I just want a kind, healthy relationship." Then they meet someone genuinely good, patient, emotionally available, consistent. But instead of relief, they feel panic. They become suspicious. They create conflict to test whether this person will abandon them like others did. They pull away from intimacy, sabotage connection, or find reasons to end things before they get hurt, not because they're unworthy of love, but because their soul doesn't recognize healthy love. Their unconscious only knows chaos, so kindness registers as danger. This person doesn't lack worthiness. They lack the inner structure to hold what they're asking for, like trying to pour water into a vessel with cracks. It doesn't matter how pure the water is if the container can't hold it. Jung understood that the unconscious is a reservoir of energy. When you lack structure to support that energy, it spills out as anxiety, self-sabotage, and chaos. But when the structure is strong, that same energy becomes creativity, focus, and inner peace. Or imagine someone who wants career success, recognition, advancement, the opportunity to lead. Then the opportunity arrives, and with it comes responsibility, visibility, the possibility of failure. Instead of stepping forward, they shrink back. They downplay their abilities. They defer to others who are less qualified. They create reasons why they're not ready yet, not experienced enough, not deserving. But the issue isn't worthiness. It's the fear of carrying what success requires. Success means standing in your full presence, and their inner structure hasn't been built to support that weight yet. Jung believed that one of the clearest signs of genuine self-worth is the ability to take responsibility for your own energy. People with weak inner structure let emotions dictate their actions, then blame circumstances. People with strong inner structure observe their emotions, understand their origins, and choose their responses. They become a steady source for themselves, instead of looking for external validation to fill internal voids. A beautiful room means nothing if its foundation is unstable. Good things cannot stay if there is no structure capable of supporting them. The issue isn't worthiness, it is the capacity to carry. Life doesn't withhold blessings because you're undeserving. Life waits until you're capable of holding them without self-destruction. And the universe expands your capacity through exactly the challenges you've been walking through, the pain, the tests, the exhaustion. All of it was building the structure you'll need. Thank you for walking with me through half of this journey. If you are still here, perhaps some part of you is already shifting in its own quiet way. The next sections will go even deeper into Jung's understanding of how transformation manifests not just internally, but in how the world around you responds to your growth. If something you heard brought you a moment of stillness, a new question, or simply the feeling of, yes, I think it's time I step fully into who I'm becoming, stay until the end. What comes next may be the missing piece you've been searching for. And if you'd like to continue journeying with content like this, a like or a subscription is not just support. It's a small vow to yourself that the path back to your true self has truly begun. When you change, the world around you will resist. And understanding this resistance might be the most important preparation of all. The moment you begin becoming someone capable of carrying what you long for, the world around you will not stand still to applaud. It will resist. Jung called this the reversal of projection. When you no longer match your old version, you no longer match the version that lives in other people's minds. And that mismatch creates friction. The resistance rarely comes from enemies or strangers. It comes from those closest to you. Imagine someone who has spent years accommodating others, saying yes when their heart wanted to say no, shrinking themselves to keep peace. Then they begin setting boundaries. They decline requests that drain them. They stop performing emotional labor they never agreed to carry. Immediately, the people who benefited from their softness react most strongly, not because they care about this person's well-being, but because they care about the version that served their comfort. The boundaries threaten that comfort, so they attack, persuade, or guilt. You've changed too much. You're not like you used to be. You're being selfish. These words aren't concern. They're attempts to restore the old system. When one person changes, the entire relational system destabilizes. In a family, if one member starts living differently, old roles break apart. The peacekeeper who stops managing everyone's emotions. The overachiever who stops seeking validation through performance. The caretaker who finally prioritizes their own needs. Those unwilling to adjust will try pulling you back into the position you once held, even if that position caused you pain. Or think of someone who begins living with discipline, waking early, focusing on personal goals, no longer wasting time on empty distractions. Suddenly, the people who used to spend hours with them every night feel abandoned. They say things like, "You're acting different. You think you're better than us now. You're changing too fast." But the truth is simpler. You didn't leave them. You left your old self. And because they stayed where they were, your forward movement makes them feel the distance between who they're becoming and who they've remained. On a deeper level, Jung observed that humans cling to psychological stability. Your growth forces others to confront their own stagnation. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Your peace challenges their chaos. And instead of using that discomfort as motivation to grow, many will try to pull you back down to the shared comfort zone. This doesn't make them evil. It makes them human. Change is threatening when you're not the one initiating it. Sometimes resistance arrives disguised as concern. "I'm worried about you. Don't change so quickly. Life was fine the way it was." These phrases sound gentle, but they're projections of fear. If you transform and they don't, they must face the growing distance between you. That distance is more uncomfortable than remaining in familiar dysfunction. But here's what you must understand. The world's resistance is not a sign you're going the wrong way. It is proof you're going the right way. Think of it this way. A clock only confuses people when its hands are moving. If it's frozen, no one notices. When you move, you force the system around you to adjust. That's natural. That's necessary. Resistance is not a sign you're going the wrong way. It is proof you're going the right way. You are not responsible for making others comfortable with your growth. You are responsible only for being loyal to who you are becoming. And when the world resists your growth, one thing almost inevitably happens. You begin to feel lonely. But that loneliness is not what most people think it is. And when the world resists your growth, one thing almost inevitably happens. You begin to feel lonely. But in Jung's language, this is not loss. It is purification, a necessary rite in the journey of individuation, the process of becoming who you were born to be, rather than who your environment shaped you into. Jung called this the in-between space, where the old has died, but the new has not yet fully taken form. This loneliness is particular, distinct from ordinary isolation. It's not the feeling of being abandoned or lacking companionship. It's the quiet that arises when you've stepped out of your old self, but haven't yet fully entered your new one. If your being were a house, this would be the moment you've dismantled walls that no longer serve you, but the new foundation hasn't been built yet. You're standing in open space, and that space feels empty. Loneliness signals that you're leaving an old frequency. You no longer speak the language your old circle is familiar with. You no longer accept the limitations you once placed on yourself. You no longer cling to connections that have already run dry. And so, people who once felt like kindred spirits now feel like strangers. This is natural purification. When you change from within, relationships that no longer align simply fall away. Jung wrote that all true growth comes with a price, and the most common price is the fading of connections that no longer resonate. The hardest part of this phase is that you cannot return to what you were, but you also don't yet know where you're going. You no longer feel at home in the old, yet the new remains unclear. Many people retreat back into their old life just to escape this discomfort. But if you're brave enough to stay with this loneliness, to observe it, accept it, listen to it, you begin to see it's not a void, it's a womb. Jung described loneliness as the filter of the soul, where everything that doesn't belong to you gets washed away, other people's expectations, the roles you strain to maintain, the old beliefs that told you who you had to be loved or accepted. All of it sinks to the bottom. What remains is your essence. Loneliness is not a void, but a womb where your truest self gestates. Imagine climbing a mountain. The base is always crowded. Everyone starts there. But the higher you go, the fewer people you meet. When you reach the upper altitudes, where the air is thin and only wind speaks, you might feel lonely. But it's also where you can finally see the whole landscape. Loneliness is not a sign you are descending. It is a sign you are rising. During this phase, new people will eventually come. Those who aren't threatened by your growth, who resonate with the frequency you're becoming. But they don't appear immediately. They come only when you're clear enough, clean enough, true enough. Loneliness is the time in which you're being emptied, so there is room for them. When you understand this, loneliness stops being frightening. It becomes a companion. It gives you space to hear yourself without interference, to discover what you truly want, not what others want from you. Most importantly, it gives you the strength to enter your new self without needing anyone to guide you. And then when loneliness has completed its task of purification, a completely new door opens, a door leading to a version of yourself you have never met, yet have always known you were meant to become, a door leading to a version of yourself you have never met, yet have always known you were meant to become. Jung called this the moment when the soul recognizes itself, when you stop searching for another version of you and simply return to the one you lost along the way. The version you are about to become is not built from ambition, societal expectation, or pressure to improve. It is a return to original essence, where simplicity becomes strength and authenticity becomes your native language. You notice this first as clarity, not the explosive kind, but a quiet brightness beneath all the layers of chaos you've just released. You no longer have to force understanding. You simply listen, and truth reveals itself, like light that has always filled a room, merely hidden behind thick curtains. At this point, Change no longer feels like effort. It becomes natural. You don't have to rehearse what to say. Your words grow more honest on their own. You don't have to train your intuition. It becomes unmistakably clear, like a knock in the night you can't ignore. Your body stands straighter without you thinking about posture. Your voice carries weight without you forcing authority. These are signs that the self has finally spoken, no longer suffocated by old defenses. Jung believed every human carries an inner blueprint, a shape toward which the soul continually grows. Throughout life, we are always moving toward alignment with that inner form. When you enter this stage, you feel as though you're snapping into place. You no longer chase what you desire because you have become what you once chased. The most noticeable change is how you react differently to things that once destabilized you. Chaos no longer pulls you out of yourself. Someone's criticism no longer dismantles your sense of worth. Others' expectations no longer shrink you into uncomfortable shapes. You stand steady, not because you're stronger than others, but because you're no longer at war with yourself. The inner conflicts ease and the energy once used for resistance becomes calm. This calm is not passivity. It's the sensation of finally being in the right place within yourself. You no longer need projection, blame, or theatrics. You simply exist in a way that makes everything around you adjust without effort. This is not control. It's the frequency of inner coherence. When your internal world aligns, your external world reflects that alignment, not through manipulation or force, but through natural resonance. Jung understood this as synchronicity. The universe responds when you've become clear enough to receive what's been waiting. This is a return, not a becoming. And this return creates a new kind of freedom, freedom not rooted in circumstance but in truth. You no longer fear losing yourself in love, in work, or in the gaze of others, because you finally know who you are, and nothing external can take that away. The version you are about to become has always been there, waiting beneath every layer you were taught to wear, every role you were told to play, every fear that convinced you to stay small. True change does not happen in the moment you try to become better, but in the moment you dare to look directly at who you are without running away. Everything that follows is merely the natural outcome of that honesty. Reaching the end of this journey, you may notice something both simple and transformative. The universe doesn't show you what you're ready for through grand revelations or miraculous signs. It shows you through the quiet shifts happening inside you right now. The exhaustion that freed you, the pain that prepared you, the test that strengthened you, the loneliness that purified you. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you dare to do that, the universe ceases to be an external mystery. It becomes a mirror reflecting every movement within your soul. If you feel even slightly different after watching this, if something stirred in you that had been asleep, know that the transformation didn't begin when you clicked this video. It began long before, in every moment you chose truth over comfort, in every instance you refused to abandon yourself. The universe has been showing you that you're ready all along. You just needed to learn its language, and that language is written in the whispers of your own becoming.